We're also tracking news out of Alberta today. Premier Jason Kenney is marking his 100th day in office. But in just 75 days, he's hoping to kick Prime Minister Justin Trudeau out of his. The United Conservative Premier has taken a strong stance against the federal Liberals ever since he was elected this past April. He's launched a court challenge against the federal carbon tax and more recently posted a video on social media attacking Justin Trudeau. So, when will Premier Kenney hit the federal campaign trail? And what does he think of new developments into an investigation into his leadership race? Premier Kenney joins me now from the Alberta Legislature in Edmonton. Thank you very much for your time today, Premier.
Great to be here.
Just to start the interview, I want to play a clip from a video that you recently posted on social media. Have a listen.
I'm not going to let Justin Trudeau push us out of our country, of which we are proud members. I would prefer to focus on, rather than focusing Alberta separating from the Canadian Federation, I'd like to focus on separating Justin Trudeau from the Prime Minister's office.
The question I have is, why did you raise the separatist sentiment in that particular video?
There was actually in response to a question that I had received a bunch of questions on a Facebook Live webinar. And as usual, I get a lot of questions everywhere I go around this province about separation. I am a Canadian Federalist. I always have been and I always will be. I make that clear every day. But I also understand the reason why a growing number of Albertans feel a deep frustration in the Federation. They feel like everywhere that we played by the rules, contributed massively to the prosperity of the Federation, contributed over $600 billion net to the rest of the Federation over the past 6 decades, and yet everywhere we turn, we feel like we're being blocked in and hemmed down. Prime Minister Trudeau, who killed the Northern Gateway pipeline, killed Energy East, surrendered to a veto on Northern Gateway, bungled Trans Mountain, is threatening us with a punitive carbon tax, has brought in the No More Pipelines law, C-69, the prejudicial attack on Alberta oil exports off the Northwest Coast, and many other policies that have had a very negative impact on jobs and incomes here in Alberta. So I'm saying to folks who are talking about separation, we Albertans are proud Canadians. Let's work to fix the problems in the Federation, beginning with a change in the federal government.
Now you say that, you said it just now and you've said it in the past, you do not publicly support separation. So are you not legitimizing that sentiment? Well, are you not publicly legitimizing that sentiment because you keep voluntarily bringing it up?
Well, no, I'm not voluntarily bringing it up. I'm responding to a very real political reality here. We had an Angus Reid poll in, I think, February saying 50% of Albertans could see support for Alberta separation. An Environics poll a month later had, I think, nearly 2/3 of Albertans saying that the Federation is not working for this province. We'd be better off outside of it. Another poll recently, 25% outright current support for separation. Now, I don't actually believe, I think a lot of people who say those things are blowing off steam. It's a way of expressing frustration. I am absolutely clear. You didn't include in that clip where I said that I am and I always have been and always will be a Canadian patriot. My dad was a fighter pilot. I've had members of my family defending this country in our uniform going back since before Confederation. So I'm an unapologetic, lifetime Federalist. And what I'm trying to do is to take the frustration in this province and turn it in a constructive direction, where we put forward an agenda for a fair deal in the Federation, which includes being able to get access to global markets for our energy products. Alberta contributes about $20 billion net to the rest of the country through equalization and other transfers every year. We simply ask for the ability to develop the resources and the wealth that help to pay those bills. That's the positive direction in which I'm trying to steer the current environment of frustration in Alberta.
Do you believe fair enough, you get the question about separation, but do you fear by talking about it publicly like this, are you stoking those fears?
No, to the contrary. I'm making the argument every day, as I did in that clip on Facebook. I had, I think, dozens, if not over 100 questions in a 1-hour Facebook session about why don't I support separation. And I'm trying to explain that I believe we Albertans are patriotic Canadians. We believe in Canada, even if we're frustrated with how the current federal government has been injuring our economy. And I'm trying to isolate the frustration on a series of federal government policies that have injured our economy. The only alternative is for me to pretend that this frustration doesn't exist. And when political leadership ignores that level of frustration, that's where things can go in the wrong direction. So I will always have been, always will be a proud Canadian patriot. I want Alberta to be a key member of this federation. I want us to contribute to the rest of Canada. We're generous as Albertans. We just simply ask for the right to be able to develop our resources and get a fair price for them and have a fair deal in Canada.
When you were a member of the Conservative government under Stephen Harper, you were one of his more effective campaigners, and you really built a number of deep ties with different ethnic communities across this country. So the big question is, when are you going to hit the campaign trail outside of Alberta for Mr. Scheer?
Well, I may do some events over the next 3 months. I haven't fully decided yet. My main job, obviously, is to deliver on my commitments to Albertans. But I must tell you, one of those commitments was to do what we can to get a change in the federal government. So I'll do my part by making the case for change.
Will you go, not
to
to
be
interrupt,
partners in prosperity.
Will you go to Ontario? Do you plan to campaign in Ontario at all?
Well, it's quite probable in the next 3 months I'll be in some other provinces, and I may do some things to help federal Conservative candidates. My main job will be here in Alberta implementing our agenda. We just, today is our 100th day in office. We've already delivered on 17% of our platform commitments, and we have a whole lot more work to do. But frankly, that work will be a lot easier if there's a change of government in Ottawa. So I'll be making that case through media, social media, and potentially some events here and in other parts of the country.
Do you particularly, Ontario is a place where there are so many seats up for grabs, and I'm very curious to see whether, do you want to come to Ontario, and would you campaign alongside Doug Ford to try and help the Conservative cause?
Well, I can't speak to Premier Ford, but I have had requests from a number of federal Conservative candidates across the country to help them out, and I'll give consideration to that where possible on the odd personal day. But my main focus is getting the job done for Alberta. Like I say, that'll be a lot easier if we have a federal government that repeals Bill C-69, repeals Bill C-48, stops the threat to impose a carbon tax on us, ensures the completion of Trans Mountain, and says that we'd rather have Canada sharing our energy with the world rather than allowing OPEC dictatorships to monopolize global energy markets. That's the kind of government I think is good for Canada, and I'll make that case here and through media and potentially events in Ontario and elsewhere.
An investigator with Alberta's Election Commission has reached out to Tariq Chowdhury, who alleges that you promised someone would pay for party memberships and that he's owned somewhere around $27,000 in total for hosting UCP events. What's your response to this allegation?
That's untrue, and we're happy. All of this was aired before the election. Happy to cooperate if there's any questions from the Elections Commissioner.
Is Mr. Chowdhury lying?
Well, I didn't. All I can tell you is the truth, that I've never asked anybody to buy memberships that would be against the rules. Our campaign did everything we could to scrupulously follow the rules. This was one of hundreds or thousands of volunteers who offered to help on our campaign. Part of that involves signing people up, and I have to assume that those folks paid for their own memberships. Those are the rules, as he should have known.
The investigations into problems with the leadership campaign keep expanding. When you look back, is there anything you think you should have done differently during your leadership campaign?
No, we had a very senior staff of tremendously professional, ethical people that did everything they could to comply with very rigorous rules. I believe that we did. In fact, we ended up winning that leadership by a margin of 2-1 with about a 30 percentage point margin in a very large leadership election. It was one of the 4 campaigns I went through in 2017. And I've always said that there might have been some people, volunteers, who perhaps didn't comply with every rule out of our line of sight of our campaign management. I hope that's not the case, and if anybody did not comply with the rules, they should be held to account for that.
Has anyone come forward to admit to you that they didn't follow the rules?
No.
Okay. We'll leave our conversation there. Thank you very much, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Welcome back. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney there on his use of separatist language when talking about some Albertans' discontent with Justin Trudeau and speaking about the questions he's getting about Alberta separatism and his position as a federalist. Kenney first used this kind of language when he came to Ottawa in May to testify against legislation that would change the way natural resource projects are approved and impose a tanker ban on BC's northern coast. On Saturday, Kenney posted a video on social media calling for Trudeau to be separated from the job of PM. Is all of this talk about separation by the Premier a good strategy heading into the federal election? Time to bring in the power panel in Toronto. Omar Khan is Vice President of Public Affairs with Hill & Knowlton Strategies. Here with me in Ottawa, Tim Powers, Vice Chair of Summa Strategies, and Kathleen Monk is a principal at Earncliffe Strategy Group. Tim, I'm going to start with you. Is this line of what Jason Kenney is talking about, is this sort of a smart strategy to take on Trudeau?
Good for Jason Kenney. Where does he get elected, Katie? He gets elected in Alberta. Alberta has resoundingly, over the years, been for enjoying its resource development to its fullest. Kenney got elected in large measure, not just playing off the challenges that the Notley government had, but also going after the federal government. When you're the leader of a resource-based province like Alberta, like Newfoundland and Labrador, Saskatchewan, it never hurts to pick a fight for your electoral benefit with the Prime Minister of the day. What Jason Kenney is doing is no different than what Danny Williams did when Paul Martin and Stephen Harper were Prime Ministers, saying the threat is from afar. Now, does it help Andrew Scheer? It doesn't hurt him in Alberta because there's only really a couple of seats in play. It may hurt him in other jurisdictions if the Liberals are able to point to Jason Kenney as being a key figure in Andrew Scheer's electoral planning and strategy.
Kathleen, how does this play in other places?
I think probably a lot of Canadians outside of the province, and frankly inside of the province of Alberta, are scratching their heads going, why is he talking about taking out Justin Trudeau, who literally lives 3,454 kilometers away in Ottawa? Why isn't he focused on getting people to work, getting Albertans back to work in the province? So I think what he's doing is really dangerous. I mean, I just want to say that there is a real sense of unfairness in Alberta, a sense of alienation, a grievance that they have. But to use that in the way that Kenney is, in turbocharging it, using inflammatory rhetoric, kind of framing the issue as he has, doesn't actually help, Albertans. And Albertans don't want to go to war with Justin Trudeau. They don't want to go to war with the rest of Canada. They just want to get back to work, right? And there have been these fights over the years. Certainly, I think it was agitated a bit when Legault last December, made that comment of there's never going to be social license for oil, for a pipeline in Quebec. That irritated a lot of them. But he's misleading Canadians, first of all, about what equalization is. Alberta doesn't write a check to other provinces. He's also actually setting a really dangerous precedent. And I think in the last line of that social media clip, you said, hey, I'm going to be focused on, in the next 3 months, and unseating Justin Trudeau. I mean, that's his aim, and his aim really should be focused in his province.
Omar, I want to bring you in on this conversation. When Jason Kenney, he has said previously that he does not believe in separation. He does not. That's not something he supports. He said it again today multiple times in our interview. But could the Liberals sort of take a look at this, this line of questioning, this line of attack against Justin Trudeau, and is there a way they could use it to their advantage?
Well, yeah, definitely. Ontarians, whenever there appears to be a national unity crisis, and clearly Premier Kenney is, he's not a separatist. I don't think anyone's saying that, but he's using the looming threat of Alberta separatism to score political points against the Prime Minister. But whenever there is a perceived threat to national unity, Ontario voters tend to gravitate towards the Liberal Party. We've already seen it become an issue here in the provincial Ontario Liberal leadership campaign, where leadership candidate Stephen Del Duca put out a tweet challenging Premier Ford to condemn the comments. So clearly, I think it's a risky move by Mr. Kenney. It may help him in his home province, but it's risky for national unity, and it's risky politically for his friend Andrew Scheer.
Let me give you a different take, if I can, from somebody who comes from a resource-based province, who's seen this language play out before, who worked for a federal cabinet minister. John Crosbie was very much pro-unity in an era when Clyde Wells helped to undo the Meech Lake Accord. What I think Jason Kenney is doing is not so much fanning the flames of separatism, but he's speaking to that discontent, because, as Kathleen said, it's real in Alberta, it's real in other places. It's not as pronounced as the rhetoric would suggest, but when you're in a resource-producing province, and you're feeling like somebody is blocking you. I mean, the good politics is to point to who, and that's what he's doing, but it's real. I think Kenney probably wins credit among more conservatives, and maybe people who aren't conservatives in Alberta, for saying, look, the real problem isn't the people here, it's what Ottawa is deciding. Don't forget, Jason Kenney also came from a party, the Reform Party, that argued about the West wanting back in. Some of those feelings have dissipated, but they're not too far from the surface to scratch. So he's speaking to that, and Justin Trudeau, I think, is vulnerable on the other side, if I can just quickly make that point, by overreaching sometimes about his potency and power of unity.
Kathleen,
Tim,
real quick,
Premier Lougheed used to engage in vigorous debates with the federal government over many years, but I don't think he ever raised the specter of Alberta separation to score a political point.
Jason isn't talking about separation.
He's not the first. Brad Wall really had done this. This is his playbook, where he said, maybe if we sent the equalization payments through pipelines, maybe then Quebec would accept them then, right? But the thing is, this is not what smart public policy is. It's about, figuring out what the best solutions are and working together as a federation.
And I hate to leave the conversation here because there's so much more to talk about. But we're going to wrap it up. Very brief power panel today. Thank you to our power panel, Omar Khan, Tim Power, and Kathleen Munn.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.